If you don't have questions, then I'll be the one to ask questions coming from you, or you will answer a particular questions. That is why you're going to listen to the discussions so that you can answer whatever questions that the teacher might ask you. So let's proceed then. Age emancipation. This age emancipation, of course, here in the Philippines, we consider age emancipation 18 years old. So 18 years old and above is considered an as adult person. So meaning to say, you are no longer in parental authority. Katotong gingon ganina nga minors, they are part of parental authority. Narabay mga ginikanan nga maingon nga mo din ay nakatunan nimo sa inyong maestra, mo din ay nakatunan ninyo sa pag-eskwela ninyo ang pagtubag-tubag. Always remember that the first learning is at home, not in the school. What we are trying to have lectures here is our subjects, not on the part of discipline. Like for an example, of course, you have the field, and I believe you have formation every Friday. That is part of the discipline. But of course, that discipline that we are talking about is nagsugod ba na siya sa ginikanan? Not us. Okay? Nagsugod siya sa ginikanan, not us. Meaning to say, that statement of the parents is invalid or error. Because you guys, you are already 19 years old, 18 and above. You are no longer parental authority, meaning you have your own knowledge. You have your own ways on how you are going to discipline yourself because you are part of the adult. So, kung mutongtong nakag-18, dili na kamingon nga magmamamama pa ka, magpapapapa ka. Because if you kill somebody, then therefore, it is your responsibility. You are adult. You are no longer a child. You are adult. So this age of emancipation is the 18 years old. That is actually basic. We know that already. Police power, of course, the power that we are talking about is this police power is control or the one who control, maintain, and ensure. But this word control, bitaw, I have a sort of disagree. I will disagree the word control because if you are going to control a certain situation, if this is the problem and you're going to control it, wala na po yung butas eh. If you're going to control it, wala na po yung butas. Meaning to say, there is no crime at all. For example, wala na po yung butas. Control. You control. You condemn. It is already stopped. So as a criminologist, I better use the word prevention. Okay? Prevention is better than cure. If this is the problem, you prevent that crime, but make sure di naman po yan nauubos. Kasi po, pag if you control that, ano na naman po yung gagawin ng mga criminologist? There is no job at all. Kasi wala na eh. Wala ka namang babantayan. So, better, that is actually my own opinion, that being a criminologist and instructor, better to use the word prevention. Kasi it was already revised. And of course, we are creating books, we are creating manuals, we are creating textbooks. And of course, we will be giving our own scenarios, own perceptions about this. So for me, I better use the word prevention compared to control. And of course, it is also their responsibility to maintain and ensure the conduct of its people within the bounds of the law. Investigative police power are those police has the capacity to initiate investigation of cases. Of course, sila man tanan siguro has the capacity to to undergo or initiate investigation. So that is just very clear. Here we go now is the definition of criminal investigation. And of course, it is lawful search for people and things. To make it short, let's go to the threefold aim of investigation. This threefold aim of investigation is very important in an investigation. You need to memorize this one. Threefold aim of investigation. Threefold aim of investigation. Okay? One is to identify the guilty party. The guilty party. This one. Who is responsible? Because the question is, who is the responsible for identifying the guilty party? If we will talk about the 5 pillars of CGS, one is the law enforcement, 2 the prosecution, 3 is the court, 4th is the correction, and 5th is the community, right? So the threefold aim of investigation, this one, who is responsible of identifying the guilty party? Sino po ba yung mag-identify ng guilty party based on the 5 pillars? Of course, the first pillar. This is the job of the first pillar. This is the job of the first pillar to identify the guilty party, because they are the one who will conduct investigation. Sila naman po yung magkakandak ng investigation. Kaya nga may sinasabi doon, di ba, na police power and police criminal responsibility, meaning to say, this is one of their job to identify the guilty party, which is the law enforcement or the assigned investigator. The first pillar has a vital role in terms of investigation. Kasi po, pag mali-mali na po yung ginagawa ni investigator in the first place, kasi first stage po siya eh. First stage. Siya po yung nagtatrabaho sa first stage, such as collection, gathering information, collection of evidences, filing of the case, before po si second pillar. Meaning to say, the second pillar will always to refer of what is the presentation of the first pillar. Akong buot pasabot, kani si first pillar dako kani siya trabaho on in terms of investigation. Yan naman. Kasi siya man ang mag-collect. Siya man po ang mag-gather of information. Therefore, if the case is murder, the evidences presented by the first pillar or the evidence must gathered in the first pillar should point for the murder, which we have 6 attendant circumstances. So kato tanang gikuha niya nga mga ebidensya dapat musulod gyud diri sa maong kaso nga murder before filing the case of murder. That is actually the process. And therefore, this person, the first pillar here, has big responsibilities or has a vital role in an investigation. Manguha siya, magkuha og mga ebidensya, collection of evidences, conducting interview and interrogations, and everything na pwede niyang kuhaon in order first is to identify the guilty party. What is the purpose of investigation if you cannot identify the guilty party? Naay mga kaso ani nga unidentified, meaning wala na kabalo. John Doe po ang ginamit, meaning they don't know the names or or they don't know actually the personality of this person. So, dili kayo siya effective ang investigation if the case would be like that. So, if ever you already collecting evidences, nag-collect, of course, you can identify the guilty party. The guilty party that we are talking about is the perpetrator. Okay? The suspect. Meaning, you need to identify who is the suspect or who is the killer. Who is the murderer? Another one is the to locate. Of course, you are done with the identifying. So let's go to the locating. Locate the guilty party. Since you already identified the guilty party, it is your responsibility to locate the guilty party. So meaning, it's either the power of warrant of arrest or else the power of search warrant and the warrant of arrest. So you can easily locate that person because you already identify that person. Of course, number 3 is to provide evidence of his guilt. To provide evidence of his guilt. Meaning, you need to provide everything from the very beginning. The first, on the part of identifying, you have already these evidences compiled so that you can locate, and of course, you are ready for the court presentation. This provide evidence of his guilt is in the presentation of the court that you are going to provide evidences to point that that person is guilty of the case of murder. Therefore, kasi nga po, in compilation of evidences, nagmali-mali na, in mali pa yung pag-file ng kaso, prosecution pa lang daan, which the prosecutor will determine the probable cause of the case based on the evidences presented by the first pillar. If mali-mali na po yung presentation ng first pillar, the second pillar will dismiss the case or they will not undergo preliminary investigation or dili na mosaka pa sa korte because mali-mali po yung ginawa ni investigator. Therefore, the first pillar has a vital rule because kana mooy dako kayong trabahoon kay siya man ang mo compile, siya pod ang mo collect sa evidences. Again, the threefold aim of investigations are to identify the guilty party, to locate, second is to locate the guilty party, and the third one is to provide evidence of his guilt. You need to memorize or you need to remember the threefold aim of investigation. If we will talk about CDI, because this CDI one is introducing, but I will let you conduct crime scene so that we will be able to assess whether you understand the topic or you did not understand. A field is very important for us to understand it well. Next is we will talk about substantive and procedural criminal investigation. This substantive or criminal investigation refers to knowledge, nature, and implication. Meaning to say, you have the knowledge of the different crimes. You, investigator, has this substantive or meaning you have this knowledge. You have this knowledge to know the different cases. Kasi pag investigador ka, mahina yung utak. If mahina yung utak, hindi mo alam kung anong gagawin. Therefore, you are not substantive. Another thing is procedural. From the word procedural that we are talking about processes. Process in order to maintain its integrity during presentation. So meaning, if you collected evidence, you transfer that is undergo laboratories or undergo DNA testing. So the result of that evidences must be maintain its integrity. Meaning to say, you are the responsible person, you know also the processes. If we will talk about crime scene, therefore, crime scene is an area po. We will use this actually. Kanabitang giingon na to, dito ba sa nahitabuan sa pagpatay, no? You should use the word crime scene. Because crime scene is actually an area where the crime committed, okay? Or where the crime happened. An area where the crime happened or a crime committed. An area where the crime committed. So area lamang po yan, place or lugar kung aha na hitabo ang maong pagpatay. So that is what we call crime scene. So do not forget that one. Let's go to the elements of crime is done with this. We already tackled this on the part of the triangle of crime, the intent, the opportunity, the capability, or opportunity/capability, or the instrumentality. Okay, so that is very understandable na. And I believe that you guys can answer already if I will ask you questions as part of the assessment. My style, by the way, right after my discussions, I will be asking few students to know if you guys really understand the topic or not. So, very lucky po yung matatawag natin ngayon. Let's go to the phases of criminal investigation. If you're going to analyze the phases of criminal investigation, guys, it's just the same with the threefold aim of investigation. Same lamang po siya. Number one for the phases is criminal is identified. Of course, that is your number one responsibility if you're conducting investigation. You need to identify the guilty party. You need to identify who is the criminal. And of course, another thing is you need to trace, locate, and arrest that person or that guilty party. The fact or evidence to prove, or you need to prove, or you need to present that in the court that that person is guilty, or you need to provide evidence of his guilt. So pare-pareho lamang po sila ng meaning. We have also the goals of criminal investigation to determine whether crime has been committed. Ito po, napaka-importante po nito na you need to know, you need to determine if there is crime committed. Kasi po, if you're not going to identify what will happen. Because we have a case of suicide. If this person here commits suicide, there is no people involved here because siya man mismo ang nagpatay sa iyang kaugalingon. Alangan man og iyang kasuhan pod iyang kaugalingon, di ba? But the problem here, if kung gipalabas lang nga suicide. That is why I said that it is very important for us to determine if there is crime committed. If somebody is involved to that, okay? If somebody involved, meaning na ay foul play. Kanang ginatawag ng to, foul play. Gipalabas nga suicide, but the truth is, kaniday siya gipatay. Therefore, investigation is very important. It doesn't mean na suicide na siya, dili na lang po na siya imbestigahan. They should still conduct investigation in order to know if there is a foul play. Example, mag-igsoon, dako kayo kayutaan, nag-away sila o yuta. But of course, if we will think about yuta, Daghan man tag yuta, guys. Tanawa lang na inyong liog, di ba? Daghan kayo yuta. Iktarya po yung yuta dirang dapita. So why do we need to kill somebody because of that? Just look at your neck or parts of your body. Daghan na siya yuta dirang dapita. But on this situation here, in this situation, the sister 1 and 2, the sister 2 killed her sister para wala na siya katunga sa maong yuta. Now, she used a poison. She used a poison and gipainom niya sa iyahang sister. Patay. And according to her, namatay ganina kadlawon kay giatake sa puso. Something like that. Because that is a poison, or maybe wala ka bula-bula iyahang bakba, pero naay organs nga naigo dito sa sulod, they need, or the investigator should conduct investigation for it. Because if not, it will palabas na nga natural death. But the truth is, there is involved other party. Meron pong other party involved, meaning there is a foul play. And kung mapamatud-an nga gipatay ni Sister 2 iyahang igsuon, and that is poison, fall into murder. Kasi po, si poison po, appeal na siya sa tinatawag na to 6 attendant circumstances. Nakuha? So, in an investigation, it is important for us to determine whether the crime has been committed or not. Of course, kung tinuod man galing nga suicide because gibulagag uyab, dili po di mo mapakasuhan ang mga uyab kay dili man siya ang gapatay. Diba? To those who are suffering for depression, tapos nagpakamatay po yun, kabantay mo atong balita nga ning lukso sa building kay gibiyaag uyab. Sus Ginoo. So that person is suffering for depression. So therefore, there is no case. Always remember, even though there is a crime committed, but the immediate family or even the victim did not file a complaint, there is no case. Okay? Remember this. Even though there is a crime there is a crime committed by a certain person, but the victim or the immediate family, if ever namatay ang victim, did not file a complaint, there is no case. Wala pong kaso. Alam nga naman, kailangan pa bang magkaso-kaso if walay nag-file o complaint? Of course. Hindi na po kayo magfa-file, wala na pong kaso yan. Wala pong nag-file ng complaint. Example, scammer ng scam o glitchon package, something like that. And then, nilayas the persons involved or the suspected person already flee or flew. Nilayas. And then the victims did not file a case. Then therefore, there is no case at all. There is no crime committed on the part of that person. It is because wala naman po nag-file ng complaint. Ganun po yan. If just wait for a while. Babe J. Si Babe J, babae po ba ito si Babe J? Okay. For example, si Babe J, kuyaw ngalan ni mo gangoy. Si Babe J, girape ni sa may Clifford. Si Babe J, girape ni Clifford. It is because Babe J is afraid to go to the police station and make a bladder or mag-file siya complaint or else naulaw siya. Narabadyo'y kaso aning mga ingunani? Maulaw maulaw on her part nga girape siya, mahadlok, then therefore walay kasong rape si Clifford. Kaya nga naman, wala man po ding file si Babe J. So ingon na akong gimin. If no one files, if the victim did not file a complaint, wala po'y kaso. Of course, dili po mapriso si Clifford because we have process, tipo ba? May mga process tayo. Meaning, if there is a complainant, there is a if there is a complainant, therefore na ay kaso. Pag walay complainant, walay kaso. Simple as that. But of course, in the goals of criminal investigation, you, the investigator, it is your responsibility to determine if the crime has been committed. Kasi merong mga kaso sama sa suicide, meron palang foul play. Yung foul play na sinasabi, natural yung death niya or through or by accident pero ang tinuod, naaday to'y taong gapaluyo sa iyahang kamatayon. So that is what we call foul play. So you, investigator, you need to find out. You need to find out based on your pagsasaliksik, based on your investigation, whether there is a foul play. Of course, that you should legally obtain information or evidence. Legal po yung pagkuha ng mga ebidensya. Identify persons involved, arrest the suspect, recover stolen properties, and present the best possible case to the prosecutor. So before you go to the next level or before you go to the next pillar, you need to gather as much as possible all evidences, tanan-tanang ebidensya nga imuhang dapat kuhaon which fits on the case. Lisod pod umukuha ka mga ebidensya nga dili na or wala na'y kalabutan sa maong kaso. Okay? Admissibility of evidence, this one. Evidence also plays a vital role, of course. Kabantay mo sa logo sa law, timbangan po siya. Meaning to say, pag timbangan siya, buot lamang pasabot, kinahanglan ka og bugat nga ebidensya. Bugat dapat ang ebidensya. Kay kung lighter lang imuhang evidence, you presented not heavier but lighter evidence, maingon naman dayo na ang sila nga lack of evidence. Gidismiss ang kaso kay lack of evidence. Therefore, you as an investigator, you need to gather as much as you can or as heavier as the evidences presented so that dili siya ma-dismiss. So, of course, when you collect evidences, it should be and must be relevant and competent. Okay? Relevant and competent. For example, if the case is murder, okay, the case is murder, and then this is the person, giluba o kutsilyo, giluba. So the reason of his death is because of this luba here. But the investigator presented a physical evidence, gun, pusil. How come? It is actually irrelevant. Irrelevant po yan. So, dili siya fit ba sa kaso? Meaning to say, investigator should collect the bulo. Bulo, sundang. That is the term actually in criminal law. So, you should collect the sundang or the kutsilyo nga gigamit sa pagpatay. Dili kay gun ni imuhang gipresentar. It is irrelevant. Irrelevant to the evidence is irrelevant. Dili na relevant. So therefore, if you are the investigator, the evidences that you submitted is relevant and competent. Kasi po, pag ang kaso murder lagi, Even though you are using gun, the case is also murder. Of course, ang mga samad gikan sa bala, kinahanglan jud na gun pod imuhang pusil pod imuhang ipresentar as physical evidence. But of course, if luba pero pusil imong gipresentar, that is irrelevant to the case. Meaning, dili siya connected sa kaso. Kaya nga naman, wala man pinusilan. Dinunggaban man, meaning katong gigamit sa pagdunggab, maoy imuhang kuhaon. Therefore, in any cases, your evidences, you collected that evidences, it should be and must be relevant and competent. Okay? Always and always remember that if we will talk about evidence, evidence must be blank and blank. Ang answer ana, evidence must be relevant and competent. Therefore, if your evidence is relevant and competent, and you compiled all the evidences and all evidences that you have submitted is relevant and competent, dako siyang chance, dako kay chance that you will acquire justice or the victim acquired justice. Before we go to different classification of evidence, the different classifications of evidence, let me present to you, because we talked earlier on this live, this one, legally obtain information, meaning to say, if you will gather interview and interrogation, of course, I will give this to you in advance, that who are those qualified as witness. Who? Dako kay ng who dira. Who are qualified as witness? Guys, pag si Marites, ito yung bahay ni Babe Jane. Ito yung bahay ni Babe Jane. Siyempre, may katabi kayong bahay, neighbors. If this is Marites, and this is Piling, if we will give meaning to Marites acquired information from other person. Meaning, kani si Marites ikaupat, nadungog niya ng impormasyon diri sa ikatulo. Ang impormasyon po ni Marites ikatulo, nadungog niya na diri sa ikadua, o kani siya nakuha niya diri. Meaning, transferring of information. Ito po yung tinatawag nating mga human CCTV po. Human CCTV. Na wala pa pong mga minuto, ang impormasyon nandito na sa ikaapat na Marites. Therefore, if we will talk about witness, are these Mariteses here are qualified? Yun po qualified po ba itong mga ito? Ang sagot po dyan, hindi. It is because the qualifications of the witness are those person who actually perceive the actual happenings. Meaning, yung nakita po niya mismo yung pangyayari. That is, the person has full knowledge to perceive actual happenings in the crime scene. And the three, pangatlo po, are the five senses. Ito po. Itong tatlo po dito, hindi po yan qualified sa witness. Kasi we're not just picking somebody to become a witness. No, hindi po ganyan yung pagkuha ng mga witnesses. Meron po yung qualification. One of those is full knowledge, or that person has full knowledge. If we would say that person has full knowledge, meaning to say, perceive the actual happenings in the crime scene. Nakita po niya mismo kung ano yung pangyayari or ano yung nangyayari sa crime scene. Pangatlo po is yung five senses. Meaning the information of this Marites here is not qualified as being witness. Si Marites 3, not qualified, 2, 3, and 4. Hindi po yan mga qualified. But if si number 1, if present po yung full knowledge, present po yung perceive the actual happenings in the crime scene, and yung five senses na sinasabi po natin, yung five senses po, yun po yung the power of smell, hearing, smelling, hearing, seeing, touching, and tasting. Yun po yung mga five senses. Meaning, makadungog, makasmell, makataste, or makasturya, makatouch, o makakita. Mauna akong pasabot sa five senses. If you have this, at least 3 of this, if you have this, mandatory po tong number 1 at saka to. Si number 3 lang po ang hindi mandatory na dapat present lahat. Bakit po? It is because these five senses here, if the scenario, Juan or Mr. A, teka lang, lobat na yung pen ko. Okay, so if Mr. A po is a mute, hindi po makapagsalita. Kasi yung mga mute po, hindi makapagsalita, hindi rin po nakakarinig. According to the book, I don't know if there is a certain situation na merong na ay bungol, na ay amang nga makadungog. Because here, I asked one of our neighbor na nag-sign language lang po siya, nagsa-sign language lang po siya at saka nag-lip reading. So yung lips mo, i-read na lang niya so that he will understand. Now, if this situation, Juan is a mute and he testified in the court that he heard noises in the adjacent room where the crime scene happened, or where the crime scene, or in the crime scene there is a murder happened, is Juan qualified as a witness? Yun po yung tanong eh. Kung qualified po ba si Juan na ning-testify siya sa korte na nakadungog lagi daw siya sa maong kabanha dito sa Pica's room. But because of the situation, there is a term which means heard. Heard po ang sinabi. Heard. Meaning to say, ano po ba? Qualified po ba si Juan? Actually, if we are going to assess it, if it is really true that a certain person who is mute, then therefore, Juan is not qualified. Kasi pag amang manggo daw, dili pod kadungog. Yan yung testify siya sa korte nga nakadungog siya, that is actually an error. But if the terms is Juan testified in the court that he saw Pedro, something like that, dili man po siya buta, therefore qualified siya. What I mean is, dili necessary na present tanang senses. Dili necessary na present po ang katong mga senses nga kung giingon. It is because depende siya sa scenario. Depende po sa scenario. Meaning, if the scenario is asking of that sense, for example, Juan is a mute. Of course, as a mute, dili siya kadungog, but he testified in the court that he saw Pedro going into that room in that particular scenario, then therefore Juan is qualified. Kay dili man pud siya buta, bungol raman og amang. Therefore, qualified siya. Meaning, depends on the scenario or depends on the situation na unsay gipangita. Diba? So, it doesn't mean that the five senses is naa, but then at least the sense that has been used in the scenario is present. Unlike Marites, the human CCTV, of course, kompleto po. Kompleto. Kompleto yung antena ng Marites. But, the problem is, nadungog niya sa other person, sa other people, which is not actually fall on the first and the second qualification of the witnesses. Okay, so I hope you guys understand it. Okay, it's already 9:36, so I guess it's time for cater or to cater questions, and you may now open your cameras so that I will be seeing you. Please open your cameras, guys.